The free tram to the Bellagio was packed to the gills with wide-eyed degenerates chasing the Vegas strip dream. The doors were just about to slide shut when a woman burst from the platform crowd, like a bat out of hell, wedging herself in the doorway. She didn't get on. She just stood there on the steps, craning her neck, scanning the car row by row like a hawk hunting prey. Her blonde hair was a rat's nest, her eyes swollen and red, her face a mass of pure, desperate panic. "Lady, you getting on or what?" The driver barked, losing his patience. "Move it, or I'm closing the doors." She tuned him out, her eyes doing a frantic sweep of the cabin. Suddenly, she locked on. She lunged forward, stomping straight to the very last row. Sitting there was a guy in a red button-down. She threw herself at him, grabbing him by the collar. "Ethan, you son of a bitch. I finally caught your ass." The guy in red looked like he was just waking up from a 3-day bender. He stared at her, totally shell-shocked. "How? How the hell did you follow me to Vegas? If I didn't fucking come, you have mortgaged the house to the bank and blown it all. Are you even human anymore?" Her voice cracked, dissolving into sobs. She started wailing on him with her fists, but there was no real heat behind it. Just a weak, pathetic flailing of total despair. He didn't fight back, didn't make a peep, just sat there taking it like a corpse. I turned my head, staring out the window at the neon glow of the Paris Hotel's Eiffel Tower, playing deaf and blind. I was about to go to war tonight, and running into this kind of shit right out of the gate was a serious buzzkill. Security eventually showed up, and between them and the woman, they dragged the guy off. The tram finally lurched forward, and the cabin slipped back into a dead, awkward silence. Stepping onto the Bellagio casino floor, the opulence hit me like a wall, smelling of expensive perfume cut with stale booze. The high-limit rooms were buzzing. Every now and then, a roar would erupt from the roulette and craps tables. I made a beeline for a nearly empty baccarat table. I'm not a crowd guy. An empty table usually means some poor bastard just got stripped to the bone right there. I glanced at the digital scoreboard, the road, then tossed my credit card to the dealer for $3,000 in chips. Plunked it all on the banker, testing the waters. Banker 8, player 6. Clean kill for the house. I let it ride on banker. Banker 7, player 6. Back-to-back hits. I took my $12,000 and shoved it all in for a parlay. Third hand, we drew cards. Player hit an 8, 3 plus 5. I squeezed my first card, an ace. Second card had 3 sides. Still alive. I flipped it, a 6. Total 7 against their 8. Parlay busted. 12 GS, up in smoke. I spat out a curse, spun on my heel, and ducked into the high-limit cigar lounge. I had just sparked a Marlboro when I caught a shadow slipping in out corner of my eye. A girl, tight ponytail, dress way too casual to be dropping cash in here. 5'3" maybe, slender, looked about 24 or 5. Pretty features, but she had this vintage Gucci fanny pack strapped around her waist. Made her look like one of those timeshare hustlers outside the Venetian. It clashed hard with her clean-cut face. Our eyes met, and she sidled up to me, dropping her pitch. "Sir, need to swap some Cash App for casino chips? Saves you that nasty 5% cash advance fee at the cage." I looked around the empty lounge, just confirming I was her mark. I blew a lazy smoke ring and iced her out. Not interested. I figured she'd take the hint and bounce, but she rooted herself to the spot, like she was waiting for me to see the light. I crushed out my cigarette and headed for the door. She clung to me like a shadow. I stopped dead and spun around. She almost plowed right into my chest. I frowned, taking a half step back. "The hell are you following me for?" "Mister, I haven't made a single dime today. Cut me some slack, please." Her blue eyes had this mix of panic, begging, and a touch of that goddamn stubbornness that just melts your defenses. My bleeding heart got the better of me. I asked what her rate was. She quoted me a spread that was worse than the casino ATMs. I shook my head, chuckling. You're robbing me blind, kid. I kept walking. Unbelievably, she stayed right on my heels, relentless. Okay, okay, I'll give you a discount. Irritation flared up in my gut. Look, you're a pretty girl. Why the hell are you out here hustling people like this? I don't need it. I'm done playing. She didn't argue this time. She just deflated, her head dropping like a balloon losing air. I realized I might have barked a little too hard. I sighed, caving in. Whatever. How much can you cover? Give me 7,500. She lit up like a kid on Halloween, digging into her fanny pack and handed me a stack of Benjamins. Asked me to count it. Don't need to. I pulled out my phone and zelled her 7,500 and change. Deal done. We booked it back out to the casino floor. Sitting on a lounge chair by the slots, I asked her name and how she ended up running this grift in Vegas. She smiled and said her name was Elena. I busted her chops a bit. Elena? Like from the Vampire Diaries? She looked up, the smile freezing on her face. She swallowed hard and spilled her guts. Said she was from some dead-end town in Ohio. Worked as a masseuse at a spa straight out of high school. Followed her ex out here to chase the dream. He hit a hot streak downtown. Promised to take her back to the Midwest, buy a house, get married. Then one night, he got a rush of blood to head, dumped it all in a VIP room, lost his shirt, and bailed on her. I was expecting some tired CW network sob story about a dad with gambling debts or a little brother who needed tuition money. Didn't matter anyway. This is Vegas. Nobody gives a shit if you're telling the truth. I'm heading back to the tables, I said, standing up. Elena popped up right beside me. Mind if I tag along? Back in the high-limit area. She didn't try to work any other marks. She just tailed me across the plush carpet, keeping a 2-foot distance. I hit the cage, grabbed my chips, and found another baccarat table. Elena stood just behind my shoulder, cheering me on like my own personal cheerleader. Nice hit, mister. Maybe she was a good luck charm. Within an hour, I was up about 15 grand. The knot in my stomach finally loosened. Hey, let me play a hand? Elena was eyeing the stack, getting the itch herself. God knows why, but I nodded, giving up my seat. I stepped back and watched her bet. The overhead casino lights caught her profile in a soft glow, straight nose, clean jawline. For a second, she reminded me of my college sweetheart. Elena bet with the kind of cool composure you only see in seasoned degenerates. She pinched the cards, peeling them back slow. Pure luck. She nailed a natural 9 and swept the board. Looking at the 20+ grand in plastic sitting on the felt, I immediately took it to the cage for cash. I peeled off $300 and shoved it into her hand as a tip. Elena, you want to grab some late-night grub? Her eyes lit up instantly. I know a taco truck off Fremont Street that's out of this world. Let me treat you. Leaving the casino, sitting in the back of a cab, she suddenly looped her arm through mine. It caught me off guard, but honestly, it was just pure primal ego stroking. By the food truck, deep into the night, we had a line of ice-cold Coronas spread across a plastic table. We clinked bottles in the desert wind, swapping our respective sob stories. A few beers in, a buzz flush crept onto Elena's pale cheeks. She talked about living off microwave dinners in cheap motels. And right then, I was almost positive she wasn't bullshitting me. How much Machiavellian scheming could a pretty 20-something girl really have in her? As I killed my 9th beer, I lit a smoke and stood up, saying I needed to take a leak. Elena stood up, a little wobbly, and hooked her finger into the hem of my jacket. Need me to hold it for you? I laughed and swatted her hand away. I ain't a 90-year-old man. I can aim myself. You're bad, but I kind of like it. She smiled, and the sugary sweetness of it gave my chest a little jolt. The public restrooms around here were filthy, reeking of homeless piss. So I just jaywalked across the street and ducked behind a dumpster in an alley. LA, Vegas, who gives a shit? Long as you don't look up, the whole world's a toilet. Just then, a guy materialized out of nowhere, marched straight up to Elena, and started grabbing at her without a word. Elena, drunk and stumbling, was being dragged toward the unlit end of the street. I squinted. The guy was wearing a wrinkled flannel shirt, eyes sunk deep in his skull, lips cracked and peeling. Textbook desperate junkie gambler. Motherfucker. Putting hands on my date? You got a death wish. Elena was fighting him, dropping to her knees in the struggle. The bastard didn't let up. He grabbed a fistful of her hair and started dragging her into the alley like a dead dog. Let her go, you piece of shit. I roared. He shot me a glare, his grip on her hair iron tight. Piss off. This ain't your business. This bitch stole my money. Elena's eyes were bloodshot, and she didn't have the strength to break free. She screamed at me, hysterical. Help! I don't even know him. I took a massive drag of my cigarette, lunged forward, and jammed the cherry right into the back of his hand. He shrieked and let go. I followed through with a right hook, catching him flush on the jaw. The bastard stumbled back and landed hard on his ass. Elena scrambled to her feet, stumbling. Quick, get me out of here. To my surprise, the bastard got back up wobbly and yanked out his phone to call for backup. Look, I'm not afraid to throw down, but I'm not stupid either. Tangling with local Vegas scum is a losing bet. I grabbed Elena's hand, and we hauled ass toward the neon lights of the main strip. Scammer, don't you fucking run. The guy screamed from behind us after sprinting a few blocks, gasping for air and making sure we lost him. I stopped. What the hell was that about? Elena answered a little too quickly, like she had the script rehearsed. I swear I don't know him. He must have confused me with one of the other girls working the street. Looking at her playing the trembling victim, I didn't press it. I checked my watch. I'm heading back to my room. Where you staying? I'll call an Uber and drop you if it's on the way. No, I'll walk. It's really close, Elena said, pointing down the street, looking a bit jumpy. I rolled my neck, cracking it loud. It had been a brutal day. My muscles knotted up from the adrenaline at the tables. My neck was killing me. The girl was a master at reading the room. She immediately sidled up, all concern. Hey, how about I come back to your hotel and work on that for you? I told you I used to work at a spa. I'm a pro. What's that going to cost me? I asked, testing the waters. Anyone else, I'd charge him. But you saved my ass back there. This one's on the house. With that, she guided me into a cab, heading straight for the Cosmopolitan. Back in the penthouse suite, I grabbed a shower, threw on a robe, and face-planted onto the king bed. Elena managed to find some of the hotel's essential oils from God knows where. She rubbed it into my shoulders and neck and gave me a legit deep tissue massage. Her technique was dead on. She'd definitely been trained. You can't fake that shit with a guy who drops thousands at high-end spas. Mid-massage, her hand stopped. She slowly pressed her body against my back, her hot lips planting a kiss right on my shoulder blade. Caught me completely off guard. We were both pretty lit, and in Vegas, with the air thick with booze and sex, adults don't usually fight off the loneliness. What happened next just took its natural course. The next morning, the sun blasted my retinas. I jerked awake. My side of the bed was empty. Gone with Elena was the 20+ grand in cash and chips I'd left in my jacket pocket. Motherfucker. That bitch. I snatched my phone and fired off an iMessage. The text bubbled up green. Underneath it, not delivered. Big surprise. I was blocked. Her Snapchat account was deleted too. A goddamn grifter. It's one thing to hustle a free meal and a bed, but to clean me out? No, one of the old-timers always say, Never trust a woman who throws herself at you in Vegas. To them, guys like me are just walking ATMs. Completely sober now, reality hit me like a ton of bricks. That poor bastard I punched in the alley last night, he was probably just another one of Elena's victims. No cameras in the suite. Cash is untraceable. She was long gone. I tried to swallow it down, chalked it up to spending 20 grand on a high-end escort. My good deed for the day. Fed it to the dogs. That's how I tried to rationalize it with a bitter laugh. But how the hell was I going to plug a 20 grand hole? I had to win it back at the tables. I picked up my phone and dialed a woman named Vicky. Vicky was a notorious loan shark, went by the moniker Black Widow. In the Vegas underworld, exchanging cash was just her side hustle. Pushing the VIG was where she made her real blood money. The line clicked, and Vicky's heavy Russian accent poured through. "Boss Leo, long time no see. How deep you playing this trip? Bring me 30 grand and chips to start." I said, "Cold as ice." "No problem. Take your time." She got my room number and said her muscle, Tommy, would run it up in half an hour. 30 minutes later, Tommy, built like a brick shithouse and sleeved in ink, knocked on my door and handed me a heavy paper bag, 30 GS in cash. I counted it out, then followed him down to the casino floor. On the way, Tommy wouldn't shut up about Vicky. The boss lady is a savage. Came to Vegas with nothing but the clothes on her back. Now, mansion in Beverly Hills, Maybach, the whole 9 yards. He talked about her like some fanatic in a cult. We walked into Caesar's Palace. Middle of the day, but it was as chaotic as the NYSE floor. I groaned, already agitated. Too many fucking people down here. It's giving me a migraine. Tommy was right on it. "I got you. Let's head up to the private salons. Vicky has accounts up there. Just sign your name and the chips flow." Tommy happily trotted off to exchange my 30 grand for high denomination flags, then handed them over with a bow. "Boss, you need me to track the board for you?" "Nope. Ain't my first rodeo. I know what I'm doing." I strolled through the ultra-luxe high-limit room, looking for a table with the right vibe. Tommy trailed me like a bodyguard. Guess he was my babysitter for the day. The chips were big boys, 5 grand dark flags. I tossed 3 to the blonde dealer and asked for change. Couldn't go too heavy right off the bat. A tiny sliver of rationality was still hanging on in my brain. Tommy pointed at the monitor. "Trends looking good here. I'd ride it." I scoffed. The digital board was just a house of smoke and mirrors. I trusted my gut and the thrill of the parlay. Sitting at my table was a woman dripping in Chanel. Didn't know her story, but she screamed Orange County housewife with too much time and money to burn. Tommy leaned in and whispered, "She's a regular. Started coming to pay off her bankrupt real estate husband's debts. Now she's hooked deeper than he was. She bet big. I never saw her put down less than 10 GS a hand. She always demanded the right to squeeze the cards, but she didn't milk it like the old vets. She'd get the cards and just rip them over, brutal, fast. Too bad she was running cold. She lost way more than she won, and finally just shoved her remaining stack forward. A desperate all-in. The dealer, dead-eyed, raked her last chips into the tray. Busto, the lady stood up, completely hollowed out, and ghosted out of the salon. I, on the other hand, came out swinging, crushed it right out of the gate, up over 10 grand easy. Tommy was hyping me up. "Beautiful. Boss, your run is legendary." His brown nosing put me in a great mood. I flicked a $100 black chip at him for his trouble. After I scooped another pot, Tommy chimed in at exactly the wrong time. "Boss, you're up big." "How?" "'Bout we hit up some authentic Texas barbecue, take a breather, and come back fresh." I was seeing red in the best way. I snapped at him. "Fuck eating. Can't you see I'm on a heater? The target today is 25K. By 1 p.m., I had a mountain of chips sitting in front of me around 50 grand. A white dude next to me gave me a jealous thumbs up. Buddy, you must have been kissed by God today. Swimming in the praise. I wanted to strike while the iron was hot, hit a round number, and cash out. I tipped my chin at the dealer. Deal M. I started scaling up my bets. Try to end the war in 3 swift strikes. But the winds in the casino change faster than you can blink. I bet banker, it hit player. I bet fucking player, it hit banker. It was like the table had a personal vendetta against me. After dumping a few heavy hands, my stack bled all the way back down to my original 30. Boss, I told you we shouldn't have chased that round number. Tommy, Captain Hindsight, started chirping. Shut your goddamn mouth. I shot him a lethal glare. Why didn't you physically drag me away then? I ignored the idiot and went back to my own rhythm, betting heavy to claw back my profits. But it didn't take long before I bottomed out. My 30 grand bankroll was dust. Tommy looked at me, walking on eggshells. Boss, let me get you some food. We go back to the suite, sleep it off. You'll get it all back tomorrow. I was depressed enough to commit murder. My slow and steady system was bulletproof an hour ago. How did it completely shit the bed? Get lost. I need some quiet. I dismissed him and headed back to the room alone, refusing to hear another syllable. Tommy shrugged helplessly. All right, catch you tomorrow. Back in the room, I shattered every glass on the table in a blind rage. Kicking myself for getting hustled by a hooker, my mind was a chaotic blur of the baccarat board and getting even. Between the agony and the sheer exhaustion, my brain's breaker switch finally tripped, and I passed out face first on the mattress. The next morning, Tommy's call dragged me awake. Boss, what's the play today? How we doing this? To fill the crater I dug, I had 0 choices left. I told him to pull another 30 grand in cash and wait for me in the lobby. My absolute last resort. I splashed ice water on my face and made a blood pact with my reflection. Hit 70 grand today and I walk. Absolutely walk. On the walk over, I tried to sound casual. Those Cash App grifters on the street. When do they usually crawl out? Tommy didn't miss a beat. Those sewer rats only come out at dusk. Security is too tight during the day. They get caught, it's straight to Metro. You know a girl named Elena? I fished. Name's too common. Not many chicks working that specific hustle anyway. Most are strictly turning tricks. There's a million of M in Vegas. How would I know her? Tommy didn't hide his disgust. He was useless to me. I dropped it, terrified he'd figure out I was a mark in a cheap badger game. I had Tommy convert the whole 30 into chips and stormed back into the same salon. I was coming for that dealer's head. The second I walked in, the same old railbirds who were kissing my ass yesterday started jeering. Well, looky here, Buddy's back to make a donation. I sneered, brushing off the losers. I was going to slap them across the face with cold, hard cash. I didn't know it, but that was the moment I stepped off the edge into the abyss. Same table, different dealer. A guy this time. I didn't even get the satisfaction of personal revenge. I won a few early on, then my luck pulled a violent 180. Couldn't pick a winner to save my life. Furious, I grabbed a $5,000 flag and slammed it on banker. 5 grand. On the felt. It's just a weightless piece of plastic. Out in the real world, it's months of a working stiff's blood and sweat. Dealer flipped. Banker 8, player 9. Player wins. An 8 getting beat by a 9, the ultimate bad beat. Try not losing your fucking mind over that. Watching my stack vaporize, Tommy chimed in. Boss, go burn a heater. Cool off. My mind drifted back to that bitch Elena. I tossed my remaining chips to Tommy to guard and walked into the smoking room alone. It was a zoo in there. I chain smoked 2 cigarettes, scanning the room, but didn't see my little scammer anywhere. She was probably already in Miami, spending my money. I wandered back to the table like a zombie, betting completely tilted. Under 10 minutes, the rest of my chips were wiped out. Tommy stood there, speechless, boiling over. I grabbed the deck of cards and hurled it hard against his chest. He didn't flinch. Instead, he lowered his voice, playing concerned friend. Boss, why don't you sign a marker with Vicky? Take a little vig. The boss lady has deep pockets. She can absolutely float you through this downswing. Signing a marker for street money. I knew exactly what that meant. In Vegas, you're selling your soul to the devil. You don't pay up, you end up stuffed in an oil drum buried out in the Mojave. But the sickness had me. Rationality was completely nuked. I took Tommy's thoughtful, fatal advice. I called Vicky. She expected the call. No small talk. She just told Tommy to greenlight me for a 30 grand line of credit. But street money has rules. A strict 3 grand table limit. And she takes a 10% juice off every winning hand. If I busted this stack, I had exactly 2 hours to settle the debt, or the interest doubled by the hour. My hand shook as I signed my name on the marker, armed with this borrowed 30. I dragged myself back to that meat grinder of a table, seesawing back and forth. 1 grand, 2 grand at a time. One hand. I played player. Hit a perfect 8. I reached out to scoop my chips when the dead-eyed dealer flipped the banker cards. Another fucking 9. Even Tommy couldn't stomach it. He'd probably never seen a guy run this terribly. He pointed at the dealer and yelled, "Fuck. How do you pull a bad beat out of that?" The dealer, unfazed, emotionlessly swept away my chips. Tommy pleaded, "Boss, lay off the heavy bets. Ease up." Like I could hear a damn word he was saying. Just then my phone buzzed. I pulled it out. My wife. I was forced to drop my hand and walk to a quiet corner to take it. "Hey, honey, what are you up to? Did you eat lunch?" Her gentle voice floated through the receiver. Hearing that innocent, weightless question just lit a match to gasoline. I barked at her, "I'm busy. Bye," and hung up. I sprinted back to my seat, glaring a hole through the card that had already sealed my fate. Big surprise. I lost. Tommy sighed heavily. "Boss, we're here to have a good time. If you blow it all, it's going to be messy for everybody." Shaking with rage, I shoved my last few grand straight into the betting circle. Tommy couldn't stop me in time. I squeezed my eyes shut, surrendering the squeeze, and just let the dealer flip them. Loss. Another fucking loss. All told, I burned through Vicky's money in under 2 hours in that VIP room. Give me another 30. I swear to God, I'll make it back. I dialed Vicky, my eyes totally bloodshot. This time, the Black Widow's voice was absolute zero. "Leo, you know the rules. Clear the board first. You don't wire funds in 2 hours. Tommy takes you for a ride out to the desert for a little chat. Square up, and you can borrow whatever you want." An ultimatum. Hilarious. Fleeced by a streetwalker, and now a shark had her fingers wrapped around my windpipe. The clock was ticking loud. Less than 2 hours to the deadline. I hid in the bathroom, staring at the sunken eyes and ashen face in the mirror. What kind of monster was I looking at? Cornered, I had to eat dirt and call my wife. I confessed everything. Begged her to borrow money from her dad and wire it internationally immediately to pay off the VIG. She sobbed until she was hoarse. It absolutely destroyed her, but to save my worthless life, she did it. The debt was settled. I swatted Tommy away like a fly and didn't borrow another dime. Didn't eat. Just crawled back to the room and passed out in a daze. The second I closed my eyes, all I saw were red and blue baccarat chips swirling like a vortex, sucking me under. I still get nightmares about that suffocating plunge into the abyss. Tail tucked firmly between my legs, I slunk back home to San Francisco. My wife looked at me with dead eyes and dropped a bomb. "Did you know I'm pregnant?" Turned out that phone call I so viciously hung up on, She was calling to tell me about the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. But I was too busy bleeding out at the baccarat table to give her 60 seconds of my time. God's twisted little karma. Staring at her growing belly, I broke down weeping. I swore on my life, for our family, for the baby, I was done gambling. A new man, 6 months later. I thought I'd buried all that filth in the past. Then, one day, my phone pinged with a Zelle notification. I opened it. It was Elena, the girl who ghosted me. She transferred me $3,000. There was a memo attached. I'm so sorry, Leo. I had no choice that night. I was into the local mob deep. If I didn't pay, I was dead. Please forgive me. Here's $3,000 to start. I'll pay back the rest slowly. Ha! Took? You fucking stole it. But looking at the actual dollars in my account, my hatred for her magically dialed back a notch. I texted her back. How have you been? Elena wrote back. Hanging in there. Left Vegas a few months ago. Dancing at a high-end gentleman's club in downtown LA now. Economy sucks. Tips are garbage, or I would have reached out sooner. Made a little last month. Kept a few under for rent and sent you the rest. Sounded sincere enough. I wasn't going to press charges anyway. But that surprise $3,000 sitting in my account? It was a match striking a fuse. It woke up the demon I had buried in my basement, screaming at me to go take one more shot at Vegas. I fed my pregnant wife some bullshit excuse about a business trip to Silicon Valley to meet clients. She didn't suspect a thing. She just quietly folded my dress shirts into my carry-on. How could any woman be so foolish, so pure? I was a total piece of shit. Even as I cursed myself out in my head, I still got in the car and headed to SFO. Touching down at McCarran again, my headspace was totally different. This time, I was out for blood. I was going back to Caesars to take back everything I lost. With interest, I hopped on the free casino tram and took a seat in the very last row. The driver was just about to close the doors when he yelled out, "Lady, we're moving. You get on, or what?" The deja vu hit me like a brick. Was it that same woman from 6 months ago, back to hunt her husband down again? I casually glanced toward the front. A heavily pregnant woman was standing in the doorway, her eyes sweeping the cabin like radar. The second I registered her face, the world spun out of control. My lungs seized up. It was my fucking wife. Instinct kicked in, and I tried to duck under the seat, but it was too late. She had a deadlock on me. Cradling her belly, she charged down the aisle, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Leo, you absolute animal. You lied to me again. You're going back to the tables, aren't you?" Every tourist on that tram whipped their head around, staring at me like I was a zoo exhibit. And right then, I knew exactly what they were thinking. We ain't even hit the casino floor yet, and we gotta see this shit. Total buzzkill. Maybe this is just the inescapable karma of a degenerate.